virtually, long distance. He's going to present, and he's been presenting all over the country and actually overseas for the last 10 years. He has presented at RootsTech London, RootsTech Salt Lake City, and is currently the Family History Center Director for Vero Beach, Florida Family History Center. So with that, we'll turn the time over to Miles, and we'll have a brief Q&A at the end where you'll be able to pose some questions to Miles, anything you're interested in on the presentation, and we'll have the microphones muted for the remainder of the presentation. Thanks. Go ahead, Miles, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, so they asked me to come in and talk to you all about using technology to organize your research. And, you know, many of us have files. Let's see if I can get my slides to move here. There we go. Okay. Hopefully none of them look like the one on the left here, where we have, you know, file cabinets with files, information all over the place, water damaged and eaten up with mold and insects and so on. That picture happens to be one of those that Family Search published with one of the areas they were doing digitizing records at. But many of us have the boxes and the file drawers with our family names and records sitting in those. In my case, you can't see because I got my screen turned off, but all my files are sitting on a bed behind me, behind my green screen. And so whenever I need to go to them, I just pull up the files, pull them out of the stack and figure out what I'm doing. So definitely not the best way of keeping your records intact. So what I want to talk about is digitizing those collections and putting them in a system that's easy for you to access and easy for you to share with all of your relatives. So, you know, what you want to do first is you got a box of photographs and you want to save those for other people to access those. And you also want to save some space. You don't want to have to go through that box every time you're looking for a photo. So you want to scan those images and those documents. So you can either use a flatbed scanner like the one in the middle here, or you can use the apps on your telephone to digitize those records. And that way they're in electronic format and easy to use and sort. So the benefits of digital collections, as I mentioned, you can use your cell phone to collect these. So no matter where you are, you can collect these records. You can use various different apps that are there, and you know, you can pick out which ones are your favorites to use. Some are as simple as the app or the scan function on your camera, and others are a little more complex. They allow you to modify the document and, you know, straighten it out, or even OCR, optical character recognition, for the text that's on some of the documents. The benefit of collecting these in a digital format, especially with your cell phone, is that the cell phone records the location, the time, the exposure data, and editing effects associated with those images. So if you're at a library and you're taking digital copies of the pages of a book that you're looking at, some of these organizing apps that I'll talk about today can actually sort those by your location. And so you can type in, you know, where you were when you took the photo, and it'll show you the photos that you took at that location. So let's talk about some of these apps that are out there and available for you to use in organizing your digital collections now. As you can see, we've got Evernote and OneNote. These are very similar products, and you can go on to, you know, Family Tree webinars or some of these other webinar sites and get an entire hour's worth of instruction on how to use Evernote or OneNote. But basically, these allow you to set up folders, and as you can see on the left-hand side of each of these, there are sets of folders, and they're identified in these cases by family names. And then you can click on those folders and you can see the records that are inside of those, and then see details about those records. You can set up text associated with the records. You can set up keywords or tags for each of these records. You can add the person's name. And so this allows you to go in and search records by those tags. You can also set up hyperlinks so that you might have a record about an individual in your family tree, and you can put in there the family search link. And so when you click on that, you go right to family search. You can click on the ancestry link or any other files that you may have that are in other databases. You can add your photographs, you can add the text, you can add a lot of information to expand on the information associated with just the image. One that I tend to use mostly is Google Photos for all of my imagery. And the great thing about Google Photos is it syncs with your phone and your computer. So if you're out taking pictures with your phone, after you take the pictures, they all get synced to the cloud on your Google Photos drive. If you've scanned the images onto your computer or you've downloaded images from a web page, all of those can then get accessed by Google Photos also. It categorizes your photos. So if you look at the top banner, you can see there's categories for people and pets, places, things, videos, collages, animations, and movies. It adds effects to your photos so you can correct the lighting, you can create animation and collages. Google Photos will automatically go through, and if you've taken a series of photos, it will create an animation for that. So a little video clip of those photos to animate them. It will also take photos that are similar in context and then create a collage of those photos. And it also suggests when you can improve those. It will enhance the colors or it will enhance the contrast automatically if you tell it to do that. You can see the photos underneath the top bar here. You know, the first one is Tuesday in Vero Beach South. So those are some photos that we took of a family history event at church. And so it categorized all of those and put them into an album. The next one, it says Wednesday. I'm not quite sure what was in Wednesday, but you know, you can go in and see what pictures were taken that Wednesday. You can go in and change these titles. So, you know, instead of Saturday afternoon in Clay County, which is the fourth one over there, that was actually my niece's wedding. And so I can type in, you know, niece's wedding in Clay County. You see the other one categorized as trip to Washington and trip to Salt Lake City and, you know, Roots Tech events and things of that sort. So those are all automatically displayed by Google Docs. It created those titles and those albums. Google Photos will also do facial recognition. So it goes through all of your photographs and it categorizes them all by facial recognition. So you can see what I've done is on some of these, I have tagged them with the person's name. So the first picture you see is Vernon Westerheide. That's my grandfather. And so it knows that that image that is there is Vernon Westerheide. And then it goes through all of your photos and links them all together. So if I click on his picture, it will now show me all of the other pictures associated with him. So this one here is my wife's aunt, or great aunt, Violet Walker. And you can see that there's an image from Thursday, August 18th, 2016, and there's an image from Saturday, October 11th, 2008. It's the same image. So somewhere along the line in 2008 and in 2016, I either took a picture of the same image or I put a copy of that image into another folder. So now it's letting me know you've got multiple copies of that same image. And I can go through and select those images and delete the multiple copies so that I only have one copy. If you look right below the individual's picture, you see all these photo album pages. Well, we were at a family reunion, and you can see it says Friday, October 12th, 2007. So we were at this family reunion. People brought their photo albums. So instead of taking individual pictures of each picture in the photo album, I just took pictures of each page in the photo album. And Google Photos then said, all of these pages have an image of Violet Alberta Walker on them. And it'll go through every single face on those images, and it will determine who those people are based on, you know, collecting those and categorizing them, putting them together, and then you put the person's name in those on those photos. What I've found is really interesting is it will actually dive into the photos. So in a couple cases where I've had a picture of people and then on the wall is a picture of somebody in their family, it will then identify the picture of whoever that is on the wall or on the mantle or wherever that photograph is actually sitting in the picture also. So it will find faces that you might not have seen when you were taking the photo. Every once in a while, it takes a really odd one. Like I've had hubcaps be identified as faces, and I've had shadows and light in trees identified as faces. And you just go through and say not a face, and it'll delete that from the categories. So in this case here, this is from 2006 to 2008, where I was taking pictures of Walker photo albums. And so you see all of these pictures that were taken, and the computer recognizes that all of these people had something in common. They were all labeled as Walkers or labeled as relatives to the Walkers in my Google Photos. And so it gathered these together, and within that 2-year period created a Walker photo album for me of the people who had similar identifications in their albums. And you can create your own albums also in Google Photos and move your photos to those albums. You can tag the album with, or tag the photograph with the album that you wanted included in. A lot of times you go to a library or an archive and you take pictures of the records, and then now you have this set of records, and unless you've gone in and actually identified the folder or identified the cemetery that you went to, when you go back to it later, you're like, I don't even know where this was. These are a series of headstones. What cemetery was I in? I don't even know. Well, with your cell phone, it puts the geotagging for all of your photographs. So it will tell you that this is the GIS location, the GPS location that those photos were taken. And it will put them on Google Maps. So you can go in, and when I typed in Minster, Ohio, it said, here are the pictures you took in Minster, Ohio on August 28th, 2018. Well, what I was doing there was I was going through the card catalog and just taking photographs of all of the index cards with the death information, the obituaries and the death cards, memorial cards for each individual. So I didn't have to write down any of this information. I could just go through and take a picture, move the card, take another picture, switch cards, take another picture. And so I could do several hundred cards in an hour and just go through. And now when I come back home, all of those are uploaded to Google Photos. They have their date stamp on them. They have the location that they were taken. And now I can take that information and move it over into Family Search and add those images as memories in Family Search. And there's other sites where you can organize your digital documents. In addition to Google Photos, you have Google Drive, Dropbox, and Microsoft 365 or OneDrive. And I'll talk about each of those a little bit and the benefits and some of the issues with some of these. I really like to use Google Drive. I use it for a lot of my data. So what I've done here, I've created a genealogy folder. And if you notice that I've got generation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and each one is color coded. So I can color code those folders so that it's easy for me to find the generation that I'm looking for. Over on the right-hand side, you see it says generation 2. It gives the details. It gives the location of the folders, when I last modified it. And then down below, there's a little pencil there. And that pencil is where you can put all of your metadata for that folder. So in this case here, what I've done is I've put all of the names of the individuals that are within that folder. Okay, so I've color-coded the folders by generation. I've added descriptions of what's in these folders. And depending on how you organize your information, you may organize it by surname or by generation or by date ranges or by place. Whatever you're comfortable with organizing in your file cabinets, you can create those file cabinets, that format in Google Drive. So I've opened up the generation 2, and you see the 8 ancestors I have in my generation 2. These are my great-grandparents. And I've color-coded inside of this so that the same color are the married couples. So you see Catherine Reese and August Wise are blue. Laura Ann Stevie and Ray Westerheide are yellow. So this lets me know that those are married couples. And then I can add meta tags to each of those records also. So I can add their birth information, their death information, you know, where they lived, any sort of meta tags that I want on each of those folders so that I can categorize them. And then inside those folders, I can now create my photos and my documents and my research logs and, you know, inventories and things of that sort that I want to track. So I've got my spreadsheets there where I put my research log, I put my inventory of all my hyperlinks to different web pages where information is stored about them, what documents I have, what photos I have. So I'm sort of building a timeline of the person in my inventory record. And I can go into that and I can see what records I have and where those are. The great thing about the Google Drive documents is all of the items are searchable now. I've added meta tags or I've put the names in the titles. And so when I type in search, it will go through those folders and find all the records. So in this case here, I did a search for WISE and it pulled out all the photographs, the spreadsheets, the documents, the folders, everything that I have for my WISE research are right there and easily accessible doing that search. The records can be shared between folders, so you don't have to copy this image that has 5 people in it into 5 different folders. You can create those folders and then reference them back to those items. So those things are linked up, but they're not, you know, copied and taking up space. You can create documents, spreadsheets, slides, maps, PowerPoint presentations, any other sort of documents you want in Google Drive. So when you create a new file, you have that ability to do Google Slides. You have the ability to do Google Sheets, Google Docs, all of those sort of things. But you can also link all of these records to Google Maps. So if you want, you can have GPS coordinates associated with these documents, and then you go into your Google Maps and it'll map out all of these documents. So I've done that with photo albums before where, you know, I've gone on a hike or something of that sort and I've taken photographs. And now I can go into my Google Maps and I can see where all those photographs were taken. The files can be shared and edited by your family. So you can set rights on these. You can set share rights and editing rights on these records. So other family members can upload their documents into these folders. They can add to your biographies, your spreadsheets, or you can lock them down so that they're just viewable by your family. And so the family can only see those records and use that information as opposed to writing into it. And Google Drive is set to sync with your files. So you can set it to sync with your various folders on your computer and bring that information into Google Drive pretty easily. Google Drive does give free storage amounts. I've upgraded to the 100 gig and it's something like $19 a year or something. It's like $1.50 a month. So it's not very expensive to do that. Dropbox is another one that you can do similar things with. You can store and sync your files between your computer and Dropbox. You can share the files with family members. You can provide online storage where they can add information to that online storage, but you're not able to produce documents in Dropbox. So you would have to create a Word file and then import it in. And then when the person opens it, they're not opening it in Word. So they'd have to download it and add information to it. So it's not quite as user-friendly as Google Docs, but it is usable. And what I've done a lot of times is when I'm doing a research project for somebody, I will create a Dropbox folder for them so they can see the reports and the information that I'm collecting while I'm collecting it. But then they can't access that information and modify any of it. And Microsoft Office, Office 365 or OneDrive is a great product also for doing the same thing. So you're storing records in here. The benefit of OneDrive is it provides you access to Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote, so that you can edit these documents online or edit them live on your computer. And as you make edits, they're saved. You can have multiple people editing these documents at the same time. Same thing with Google Docs. You can have 3 or 4 people in the same document making edits. And as those edits are being made, they're being saved. So, you know, it's an easy way to collaborate when you're sharing documents. Of course, probably you've been using Family Search, and I upload all of my records to Family Search to the memories section. So, you know, you can organize your photos in there. You can create albums of your photos. The great thing about photos on Family Search is that you can tag each individual person and link it to their record on Family Search. You can add information such as event date and place, a description, you know, select the album it belongs in, write a narrative about it. You can write a story about the photo or the record. You can share it to your social media. You can, you know, highlight your favorites. You can do various different actions, including, you know, modifying the tint and the cropping it up, things of that sort that are doable. So it's a really easy way to organize your photos. You can organize your records, your documents. I do a lot of clipping from newspapers, online newspapers, and adding that information in here. So, you know, I have things like the death notice, and, you know, my great-grandfather, August Wise, he had a car accident. One of these is an advertisement for one of his companies. The other one is his, in here I've got his canal boat schedule. So he had a canal boat that transported materials. So I've got that schedule in there. He was struck by lightning, and I was able to find a newspaper article about him being struck by lightning. And he also found a skeleton on his property while he was clearing the woods. And so there's a newspaper article about that. So there's some really great pieces of information that you can add into your documents and to create the stories. And these aren't necessarily things that you would use as sources in Family Search or your research, but they do enhance your stories as you're doing your research. Again, with these documents, you can tag them. So you can tag everybody that's listed in here. You can add the description to it, the dates, the events, and so on. So it gives you a lot of area to add more information. And then, of course, you can add stories. So, you know, you can create your own stories, or you can transcribe stories from other sources and add those here also, as well as the audio component to it, where you can, you know, record a story, a short story, and then add it to your memories collection in Family Search. Some people like to have visual organization. So there's a couple examples here of ways to organize your records visually. The first one is Trello. And I don't know if anybody's ever used Trello, but in this case here, you can create your columns, and your columns are however you want to do that, by date, by location, by name, by family. So you can see here that the first column is the George and Mary Catherine Winter family. And so the header is a photograph with a little text information about it. And then down below that are stories that are associated with that family. So you can organize those stories however you want, dates, you know, timeline sort of format, and move them around. You can see that they can add comments. So you can share these to your family, and they can add comments and like the individual photos and documents. And so you can set these up for your different members of your family. The restriction here on Trello, as far as I've used it, you can only set up these columns of information. So you end up with these really long columns if you're doing this with multiple sets of families. I sort of like BubbleUp as a visual format. It's very similar to Trello, except you can create folders inside of BubbleUp. And so you see here, I've got 2 folders that are showing on this screen. One's the Westerheide and one's the Wise family. You can set the image, that's your highlighted image for the folder. And then when you go into it, you open your folder, and then you can set up subfolders within that of individuals within it. So I've got a subfolder for Ray Westerheide, my great-grandfather, for Stanley Westerheide, for Vernon Westerheide, my grandfather, for the Westerheide Tobacco Company, which is another Westerheide family, but they ran a tobacco company in St. Louis, Missouri. And then when you open up the folder, you can see all of the images that are associated with that family or that individual. And you can add text to it. You can add tags to it. People can go in and like it and share it. And by adding the text and the tags, it makes it searchable. So here's an example of a photograph of August Wise and his family on a fishing trip. And so I've got, the annual outing of August Wise family at Prater's Landing, Russells Point, Ohio, June 21st, 1915. Left to right, Hilda, Teresa, Esther, Catherine, Verona, and so on. The family are all named. And then I have about this image, when it was added to the folder, if I did any updates to it, how large the folder is, and so on. Then when I go in, I can type in Wise, and all of the imagery that's associated with the Wise family pops up and is easily searchable, that I can go right to those records as opposed to going into the folder and searching through the folder. So you can set it up however you want to do on these types of organization folders on BubbleUp. It additionally gives you the ability to create slideshows. So you can go into a folder and you can link your images and then create a slideshow. So you can tell it to hide or show the image, what the transition time is. Do you want this one to be a fast transition or a slow transition? What the effect is, a fade in, fade out, shutter, whatever that might be. And then, look in subfolders that are associated here and collect those images also. And then you can hit save, and then it creates a slideshow of the images that you have. So when you're organizing your information, there are dozens of ways to organize your research. When you can go online, you can look up organization techniques, and you may find that using folders to highlight family names or surnames, or using folders for locations or time frames or individuals, whatever that way that you organize your data and you're used to organizing that data and comfortable with it, you can do the same thing online. The benefit of being online is that, if you're doing it at home and your file cabinet is there, your records are in that file cabinet. Who's seeing those records? It's you or whoever's at your home. What happens if there's a disaster, there's a tornado or a flood or a hurricane or a fire, and that file cabinet gets destroyed? So those records, if they're not digitized and put someplace else in cloud storage, even if they're on your computer and digitized, how many people have had a hard drive crash and you lose that information? Okay, so if you've got it in cloud storage, that information is there. And I do it in multiple formats. I'll do it on BubbleUp and Google Docs and Family Search and Ancestry, so that in case one of those ever goes out of business, I still have a set of those records someplace else. You can go in, always search the blogs for ideas on how to use different sites. There's always newer sites coming up and being developed. People are always coming up with new ideas on organizing information. You want to look at those and see if maybe there's a way that makes more sense to you, or a format that's more comfortable for you. Like I said, Trello and BubbleUp use a very similar format. I like BubbleUp because of the way that it's more, you're able to design it more to fit your needs. But I have friends that use Trello and they're set on Trello. They like that format. Google Docs versus Dropbox. I like Google Docs because I'm able to edit things live on those. In Dropbox, you have to download it and edit it and then upload it again. But I like Dropbox when I'm doing a research project for somebody else, because then I'm just putting the document there for them to look at. I don't want them editing the documents, that sort of thing. You take into consideration as you're picking and choosing where you want to organize your information. So I'm opening it up now for questions. We've been about 30, 35 minutes or so. So do we have any questions?
I've got a question.
Sure.
With the prevalence of identity theft in the world these days, along with fake news or fake, like deep fakes and things like that,
Right.
there's always that tension of how much do I put out about my family online versus how much is that putting me at risk? What have you seen, or how have you kind of grappled with that dilemma, and what steps have you taken to protect your personal identity while still at the same time using technology to organize and share with other people?
Right. Yeah. So generally, I'm not going to put out information on living people on those, those sites in most cases. If I've got the site locked down and, the only access is through a link that I provide somebody, and the information about living people is necessary in order to, demonstrate what's on those images or those records, yeah, I'll do that. But it's a locked down file folder. It's not open to searching in public access. But when I'm doing something with like a family set of records, all of those people are deceased. The records are fairly old. They're easily accessible on many databases that are already out there. So I'm not providing information that somebody couldn't find already. I'm just consolidating it about, certain ancestors. I mean, I had an individual that I was doing, I was doing family research. He ended up saying, "Hey, we're related," and he sent me his birth certificate. I'm like, you don't want to do that, So, be aware of what the information that you're sharing is, and if it's already out there, I'm fairly comfortable with putting it out for in a consolidated area for my relatives to find and use, as opposed to having them search for it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions for Miles? Well, thank you for all of you for attending today, and we'll have a recording of this presentation up probably within a couple of days, so be sure to check back granitefhc.com, and under the class area, you can access the class recordings. Thanks again, and each Tuesday we have a different presentation, so check back with us each week, and we'll be happy to keep that going. Thank you very much, especially to Miles for an excellent presentation today.